In my recent years, I had a pretty crazy experience. It's almost like kind of hard to talk about. It's just one of those like weird deals. But I was I was in Montana. I've got I'm an outfitter. That's how I make my living, is taking people on expeditions, hunting or whatever all over the world. And I've got a lodge based in Montana, and so we were building this this outdoor shower bathroom thing because we do this big 4th of July party every year, right? And so my place is right on the river, and it's springtime, and it's one of the highest runoffs we've ever had. So the water is all spring runoff, and they measure rivers in cubic feet per second. So the river normally would say is like 300 CFS. This weekend, it was flowing at 3,000 CFS. So that's like the same size river, but that much water. I mean, it's just ripping. And it's that kind of water where you put your hand in it, and it's ice cold. Like, I mean, a lot like that glacial river that Steve crossed. And so I'm out there building the thing, and my family's helping me. And there'd been rafts going by kind of a little bit throughout the day because it was a really nice day. It was Father's Day. And I hear somebody yell. I was thinking, oh, okay. So I walk to the edge of the river, and I see all this shit floating down. I'm thinking, this is not good, you know? Somebody must have turned their boat. And here comes this lady floating face up. And she just locks eyes with me, and she says, help me, help me. I'm like, oh, shit. By this time, my mom had run up to the river, too, and I take my cell phone and my wallet out of my pocket. I throw it to my mom, and I yell to her, call 911, you know? And the lady, I yelled to her, I said, kick to shore, you know, and and she's just like looking at me, help me, as she's floating down the river pretty quick. Well, she hits a current and takes off. You know, in the background, my mom's screaming, don't go in the river, don't go in the river. And she hits the current, and I just start running. And to this day, I do not remember, like, I've walked through that area a lot of times. I don't know how I ran so fast. Like, I don't remember, like, when it was all over, I don't remember running. I just remember being at the end of, there's like this, I mean, trees and shit falling everywhere, and I don't know how I ran through it so fast. But I ended up hitting the highway and running down the highway, and there's this corner where the river banks, and there's a big cliff on one side, and then it makes this giant rapid there. Well, I see her, and she goes under the rapid. And at this point, I hit the highway, and this truck had pulled off. And I yell to the guy, I say, she pops up, and she's coming close to the shore now. And I yell to this guy who's standing there. I say, grab her, because she just popped up. Well, he reaches out, and it was like, I don't know if he freaked out or what. Like, he grabs and just misses her. And at this point, I'm like, oh, shit. You know, I mean, she was just alive. And she's hitting the fast water again, and I just jumped in. And so I jump in, and I'm in the river with her. And, you know, like, my thought when I jumped in was, I'm not getting out of this. It was like the weirdest deal ever. So I jump in, and I grab her foot. When I grab her foot, she goes under. So I kind of have to scoop her up under the water, and I start floating down the river with her, holding her up. And I catch the rocks, and luckily I was wearing my hunting boots that day. They were like, you know, tall hunting boots, like 9-inch boots. And I think that's the only reason I got out of the river, because it made my ankles stiff enough I could catch the rocks on the bottom. And then I drug her up on shore, and I tried not to move her, you know, because I didn't know if she had a broken neck or what. So I get her up to the shore, and I check, you know, I'm first responder, you know, so I do all this stuff, and I check to make sure she's breathing or whatever. There's like not really any signs of life, but her eyes are open, and she's got a little bit of breath, tiny pulse. So I just kind of like look at her. It's like you're looking at her, but nobody's home. So I just grab her by the face and yell, "Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!" And about after 10 times of yelling it, it's like all of a sudden, boom, someone comes to. She takes a breath and is like, "Okay." I tell the other guy, go grab some blankets and stuff and wrap her up. And she looks at me and she says, "Where's Dave? Where's Dave?" I'm like, you know, I don't know. Who's Dave? You know, I mean, well, by this time, a lot of time's passed. I turn around, and on the bottom of the river is this guy. All his clothes are ripped off, and he's going down the river head first on the opposite side of the river. I go, oh, shit.
He's dead.
Dead. You know, he'd been 5 minutes behind her maybe. And so at this point, it's like, you know, I just, like, I didn't really, you know, I mean, here's an able-bodied person that was completely screwed, you know, like in the river, completely screwed. You know, what's to mean that I have no special skill set that they don't have to get myself out of this, you know, just maybe a little bit of luck. You know, I went in for her, but, you know, I mean, I obviously knew this guy was gone. So I threw something like that floated over the top of him because everything kind of floats at a constant rate. We ended up pulling him out of the river 2.5 miles down. He had died, obviously, which, you know, it's a really horrible experience. The lady called me back the next day, you know, because she just lost her husband. It was Father's Day. And, yeah, I mean, it's like, you're like, okay. And then, you know, you're going through all these weird emotions. Like, I just jumped in a river and, like, didn't think I was coming out of it. And, like, the emotional shit that you go through, you know, it's, like, really a weird deal. And then, so she called and said, I just want to hear your story. And then I wanted to tell you my story, you know, because it's like, I don't know, you just, like, I feel this connection with this lady now, you know. And so she tells me her story, and she says they were floating down the river. They hit this back eddy. The raft there was a log that fell across the river. The raft gets sucked under the log and spits them both up, you know, out, you know, everything's gone. They're floating down the river. They weren't wearing any life vests, and they were holding hands floating down the river. He says, I love you, and then just disappears. Can you imagine that? So she tells me, and it must have been at some point after I saw her when she went under the water. She said that it was the most peaceful feeling she'd ever felt. She said it was like everything was white. She says she knows her husband didn't suffer. She's like, it was like and then she heard this voice like way off in the distance and just like latched onto it and then came to. And so the doctors told her that even 5 more seconds in the water, she would have been dead. Her body had completely given up. And they said that it was like this weird response. I just started yelling at her. I don't know why. Like it was like it felt like the right thing to do. And they said like that voice like gave her something to latch onto and like let her body know that it's okay. Like, you know, it was really weird.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's what you risk when you go rafting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
these
fun
people,
and exciting.
They were professionals too. I mean, this guy, this is what they did for a living. They were professionals.
Wow.
They're just like.
So they weren't just tourists.
No, they weren't tourists. They were scouting it out before they took clients there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Rivers will fuck you up.
Why
man,
didn't they have
fast.
life vests on?
You know, I mean, you just like it's kind of like any professional. You get into a certain mindset where
You
get too comfortable, and like I've been guilty of it. You know, I mean, we all have in some respect. You know, it's like you ever take a motorcycle down the street without a helmet, you know, or what? You know, just
think you can get away with it.
Yeah.